Don't wake up on a Monday and go, I got to sell this thing by Friday. Highly encourage folks to just start interviewing or networking or just building relationships with people that you think would be a possible candidate 2, 3, 4, even 5 years in the making. And that way you really build a strong foundation.
Welcome to Business Refocused, a podcast about the people, decisions, and strategies behind building a successful business. Each week, we talk with leaders and operators about what they're learning, what's working, and the challenges that come with growth. I'm Lindsay Sexton, and I'm happy to introduce you to my co-host, who just so happens to be my mom, Carey Wallace. Let's get into it. Hey, Mom, how's it going?
I'm having a fabulous day, Lindsay. How is your day going?
Oh, I'm good. I'm retreated for the summer out of the heat up into Ohio. So I'm in one of my favorite places in the world that I ever get to go to. It's like Christmas Eve, the day before I leave, and Christmas when I get here. It's awesome. We took the little Zodiac out with our 2 dogs out on the lake and up the river and looking at all the cute houses yesterday. So I'm having a good week so far, that's for sure.
I love hearing that. I truly do. I think you referred to it as your summer home earlier, and I'm like, I got to tell you, when I was in my mid-20s, I did not think I had a summer home. You're pretty fortunate to have a summer home to retreat to, my friend. For all of the listeners, these are her in-laws who live on Lake Erie that she's able to go there and spend time with them. It's the beauty of working remote. So I'm thrilled to hear that Kona and Belly are liking Lake Erie, and we miss you down here. We're taking the boat out tonight, as a matter of fact. And I thought you might have a little bit of a problem with us taking the boat out, and we never do that on a weekday. But you inspired me yesterday when you sent me that picture. I'm like, the heck's wrong with me? I got a boat right there. Why am I not doing this?
Yeah, you can do that too. Good. I'm happy for you. You should take the boat out. You deserve a little fun.
Exactly. Well, today's a big treat for me. I'm getting to end on one of the highest notes. That's why part of the reason why this day is so fabulous. I get to work with some of the most amazing people, and they become friends. There's just no two ways around that. So today we get to have one of my former clients, but also really, really good friends, Trey Siner, join the podcast. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you, Carey, for having me. And Lindsay, great to see you as well. So I'm excited about being here today.
Yeah. I mean that with completely wholeheartedly, that you work so closely with someone, you know about their family, you know about their lives, you know about their agency. I mean, for me in particular, people have to tell me quite a bit for me to be effective in my job to work with agencies. Right. But I feel that way about you. Like, we got to work together for several years, and I feel very fortunate that I got to spend time with you and know about your family, about your agency, and all that good stuff. So anyway.
Oh, for sure, Carey. I mean, we definitely have built a friendship over the last 4 or 5 years, and I'm grateful for that. So I'm looking forward to jumping in today and sharing a little knowledge.
Yeah. So for those of you that don't know, M&A is hot in our industry. Let's just start with that. And Trey, when you and I first met, you, like many agency owners, I think you were feeling like, man, this is a lot. This is a lot to run an agency, lead a team, all this stuff. And you were thinking, hey, it might be time for me to sell my agency. And I'd love for you to just tell your story a little bit, because you didn't right away. You did a lot of work, and I'd love to hear you give your story up till today. Like, that would be great. And then we're going to jump in on a couple areas there, if you don't mind.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, if we go back a little bit, I think it was around 4.5 to 5 years, you and I met at an IIANC conference up in Asheville. And it was one of those things meant to be. And you saw me. I mean, it was a 15-minute conversation. And when we walked away, you didn't tell me at that point, but later on you mentioned, you could say, I could see it. You had a lot on your mind. And I remember telling you, I've either got to make some changes or it's time. I'm done. Right. And I had, at that point in time, started my business scratch in my living room, February 1st, 2002. And so it had been right around 20 years in business, 19 years in business, something like that. And it was time for a change. And when you own an agency solo, you can certainly talk to your spouse, you can talk about these things, but there is no partner. There's nobody else as committed to it as you are or I was. So it's like, who do you go to speak and get honest feedback and really challenge, someone to really challenge me? And that's where you came in. We had that 15-minute conversation, and I think I signed on pretty much right then or shortly thereafter, because I was like, I need Carey, I need agency focus, I need a professional that understands some things that's outside of the forest, if you will. And so that was critical for me. And long story short, as you know, we worked together. We made lots of changes within the agency to help it grow. I remember one of the things you said, Carey, was, if you do want to sell at some point, and we did not have a time set yet, you're like, we've got to work on making sure QuickBooks is cleaned up, all the financials are cleaned up, and we want to be as profitable, operating as profitably as we possibly can. And fortunately, we were able to do that. And with your help and your team's help, that was big. But eventually I got to a point where I started asking the question, and I think this is a real important question for anybody that's considering selling their agency. I think there's a real important question, 3 words. What is enough? What is enough? And for me, a lot of prayer, a lot of reading, a lot of podcasts, of course, a lot talking to my wife and even my kids.
Yeah.
I had to come to grips with what is enough, because we're also driven. We're also going after the next win, right? The next client, the next quarterly bonus, the next this, the next that. And that's great. Obviously, when you're in business, right? You're either growing or you're sinking. You're doing one or the other. So you have to grow. And I have a saying on my desk, and I still have it. It says, never, never, never give up. And I never have, and I never will. But at some point, I think anyway, you come to the end and you say, what is enough? Right. And that's not just financial. Obviously we have to know our numbers. We have to know what you can live off of in retirement. That's obviously important. But it's even beyond that. It's, what is enough time away from my family? What is enough time that I can focus on my health? What is enough time left that I can travel or do the things I want to do at the age that I am? And I think when you take a step back, even by yourself, maybe go out in the woods or something, or get on the boat, Lindsay, you get on the Zodiac and you just float out there in Lake Erie and you're like, okay, Lord, what's your plan for me? And so that was one of the things that I really had to do. In addition to that, Carey, and a lot of this came with talking with you. I mean, we had monthly calls and probably weekly texts.
That's a true statement, actually. Yeah, that's definitely true. Yeah.
You were always so kind to say, text me whenever, and you could have been anywhere in the world practically, and I'd text you and you would immediately respond, which I always just thought was phenomenal. I've always loved that. But I had to make some decisions on, okay, staffing. If I was going to stay in this, I was like, okay, I need to hire a full-time office manager. AI, I mean, that's obviously huge in our industry. It's beginning to be huge. And it's like, do I want to start tackling that? And what's that going to take? We knew valuations were really good at the time. What are valuations going to look like in the future? Nobody knows, right? Those kinds of things started popping in my head, like, what else am I got to think about to continue to grow this agency for the next 1, 2, 3, 5+ years?
Yeah.
And, that's where we started having a lot of conversations, Carey.
So let me ask you this. I love your question of when is it enough? And that answer is different for everyone. And if you just think about money, sure, you can run your numbers and see what lifestyle you want to live and how long your expected life expectancy is, et cetera. And you would know, is my agency worth enough? Is it going to pay me enough in order to live the life that I want to live? That's like scratching the surface on the question that you're talking about, though. And knowing when it's the right time for you is a whole nother thing, because
Yes.
especially for someone who runs a scratch agency, sadly, I run my own business, and sadly, you can easily fall into the trap of this becomes so much of your identity, the people you hang around, the things that you do, the things that consume your thoughts. It can almost feel like you can't imagine doing something else. So, talk to me
True.
about how you figured out, is this the right time? Is 2 years from now the right time? Is 5 years from now? And what things influence that decision for you?
A few things. I mean, my sophomore roommate in college passed away last year. My wife's youngest brother passed away at age 29. We've shared some of these stories. On the flip side, my dad, I like to always share this. At age 70, he was the number one sales manager for Nationwide Insurance in the whole country at age
Oh my
70.
gosh.
So, I mean, I'm like living up to this, or trying to. And he retired at 76, I believe it was. And he's 85 now. And today he would still be working, if he would like to still be working. But I told him a long time ago, I'm not you. I'm not going to work that long. So I knew in my mind I wanted to be done around 60 at the latest. I guess it's okay. I'm 57. And so timing was a big part of it, right? So my energy level was changing a little bit inside the agency. Again, it'd been 24 years that just running hard. But back several years ago, a friend of mine, a client of mine, he'd been a friend for a number of years, was sitting in my office, and we were looking out the window, and my name was on my sign out on the road. And he said, your company is you, like, is solely you. And it sort of hit me to go, I don't want that. So right then I had to start making some transitions to be, I don't want to be the agent. I want to be the entrepreneur. I want to be the business builder. And so slowly over time started making those decisions. And that really helped me start backing away over time from some of the day-to-day things that needed to be done to run the company. And so that was helpful for me to hear that. But timing, I have a new grandson. My family is all healthy. My wife and I, we just felt like the timing was right. We knew valuations were up pretty good. The company was running really well, thanks in part, Carey, to you and your team. And I just sort of felt like the stars were aligning. Also, I think this would be helpful for people. We spent 3-4+ years, if you will, sort of interviewing people and talking to them about what their future plans are going to be in regards to mergers and acquisitions. Like, there's some agents that I could definitely see selling the company to, and then there's some agents that are great people, but I would see would not be a good fit for us, because it was incredibly important for me to know that my team would stay in place, that the location would stay, and that they hopefully would have some similar management styles, so it wouldn't be a big shakeup for my team. That was really, really important to have, continuity. But I didn't want to exit and then, a third of my team exit at the same time. I did not want that for anybody. And so fortunately, we were able to find the right agency, which turned out to be some good friends of mine. They had a high interest in our agency, and we had a high interest in knowing that they would care for the place like I have over the last 24 years, and they would carry the torch forward. But going back to my father, and I say this with all due respect, he's still alive, but he was sort of defined by his work.
Mm-hmm.
I won't say I have never been, because I think to some degree when you own the company and start from scratch, it sort of does define you. But over time, I didn't feel like the company defined me. I'm a father, I'm a husband, yes, I'm a business owner, but I felt like there's more to me than just the business. So in my mind, when the transition started happening, even before it happened, but all through that process, I felt like I didn't feel like I was losing something. This is another big question I think people should ask. Are you running from something, or are you running to something? We talked about that, remember?
Mhm.
And I always felt like I was running to something, and that was good for me.
Well, I think you got to the place where you were running to something, but when I first met you, I think you were more like, I'm listen, we all are tired. There are days at the end of the day or end of the weekend. I mean, my husband can see on my face, I'm tired. Like it
Hmm.
is it's a different thing to have it all sit on your shoulders and you're running
Yeah.
something and you're trying to decide what the next step is, et cetera. And you never ever ever want to be running from, you want to be running to, and you got to really think about what will that be for me. So
Yeah.
for your dad, it might have been difficult to run to something because all he saw himself was in that
Yeah.
role. And I would tell you, my father-in-law was the same thing. He was, huge career at AT&T, and he had a really hard time seeing himself doing anything but that. And retirement was difficult for him because he didn't know what to do with himself. Like he
Mhm.
genuinely, it was a big part of his
Hmm.
identity. He's a great dad, and he was a officiant of sports, etc. But his job was a very big part of who he was. So
Right.
I understand
Well,
that completely. You know.
and I think times have changed obviously a lot. And I did a lot of reading and research on retirement, not just the financial side, like we spoke about, but like the mindset and what actually is it. And retirement can have a little bit of the word can have a little bit of a negative connotation, right? It's like, okay, I'm done working, so I'm just going to go, melt into a couch and sit there for the next 30 years. Well, that's not me at all. I never stop moving. I mean, ask my wife. I am literally always moving. and and so I found a lot of excitement with it, but I had to research a lot. I had to read a lot. I had to understand all this before this transition, finalized.
You know what I think is one of the most interesting things you said, and I say this because I see it across a lot of agency owners who we've talked to that have sold, is first of all, you never once mentioned price, but you mentioned, I want my staff to have similar leadership and management. I want my clients to be able to have similar experience. And I didn't want anyone to leave, right? Like that,
Hmm.
those were
Yeah.
the things that were most important to you. And that's typically what we see when agency owners are selling. And for you, it sounds like you found that fit because it was your friend, right? But
Yes. Hmm.
maybe some of those other, because I believe you spoke to multiple agencies. I can't believe my mom would not let you speak to multiple agencies. So I'm going to go out on a limb and say you
Yes,
did.
we did.
How were you assessing that fit with potential other owners before you made the decision?
Mm.
Um, I'm a fairly good judge of character.
Hmm.
And I think it's almost like dating, right? And you start dating someone, it's like, are there some commonalities? Are we sort of, is the vibe good? Are we jiving here? Or is it just a
Yeah.
complete, like, are we going different directions? You know, I'll joke and say that, the buyers and me being the seller, we sort of flirted, and I use that word professionally. I mean, but for a long time, they've said, "Hey, if you're ever interested, I'm interested in buying." And I said, "Okay, well, we'll certainly have a conversation." So that to me, I think, is a key point to anyone or for anyone that is looking to sell their agency. Carey, you told me this multiple times. Don't wake up on a Monday and go, "I got to sell this thing by Friday." Highly encourage folks to just start interviewing or networking or just building relationships with people that you think would be a possible candidate 2, 3, 4, even 5 years in the making. And that way you really build a strong foundation. And when I look at it as like a relay race, you hand that baton, there's a good chance that they're going to carry the baton and run really, really well with it. Um, I personally think it would be tough for me to just interview, 6 people and have to make a decision within a month or two. So for me, it was better to do it over time. Carey knows sometimes it takes me a while to make decisions on some things, big decisions. And that's just how my life's always been, with all the things my wife and I have done. So anyway, I think that can be wise, and there's can be some value there.
So, this is a huge decision, and you're post, I don't know how many months, but all I know is I don't get to see you on a monthly basis anymore. And that's a miss on my side, but a huge celebration for you. And, obviously wish you well. We worked really hard on this. So I'm also very
Yes.
proud of where you ended
Yes.
up. But,
Yes.
tell me, everybody looks in the rearview mirror. And the worst thing, in my opinion, is you go through this whole process and you have something that you wish you would have done differently. Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. But I would hope that those are not huge things on your mind. Is that something that you've done? Is there anything that you have said, man, you get to sell this thing once? So,
Mhm.
like, was there any part of you that looked in that rearview mirror and said, that was a miss? Anything?
I had lots of questions leading up to it, of course, and no deal is done until you look into your bank account and the transaction has happened, right? I had my best friend who's
Sure.
not in our industry. It took him 6 years to sell his company. And I read a lot of horror stories about selling companies. I think that was worth my time as well to understand the negatives. But I have to be honest, Carey, my wife was really concerned how I would react after a month after, 2 months after, and so forth. And literally zero regrets.
Hmm.
I was happy then. I'm so much happier now. I was joyful then. I'm so much more joyful now. I am living my best life. I've got a huge challenge that I signed up for that's in September this year, and I'm training for that. I have purpose. I have my family. I've got my friends, and I'm able to be that way partly because I think a large part because of many of the conversations we had, you and I had, and even beyond that, in the things that I read and that I filled my mind with. I decided I needed to step away from the business a little bit and really focus on reading about selling companies, the good and the bad way, reading about what is actual retirement. What does that look like? Spending a lot of time talking to family. I called friends of mine that were retired. I call them freedom friends because they were retired and they got free. I called them and I'd take them to lunch and I'd say, I'm considering this at some point. Tell me, what's it like? So I did a lot of this research, if you will, up front, which gave me a lot of peace when this happened. And the first day I felt retired was about 4.5 weeks after the event, after the sale happened. I was building a table for my wife, and I was just in my garage building this table, and I'm like, this is the best thing ever. You know, I mean, this is just absolutely awesome.
Yeah.
So, long answer to your question, Carey, and I like to talk, but it's literally zero regrets. You know, my attorney was well, CPA did well, you did well. All the pieces of the puzzle came about nicely, and it took about 10 months though. It took about
I
10
was just going to
months.
ask you to explain that. So, why don't we step through what that sale process looked like for you? And were there points in the process that, caused some angst or stress or, um, you know, the average agency goes through this once. They literally
Right.
have one option. And I think it's almost like an abyss. We don't know exactly what it's going to be. You can talk about it. The best way to find out what it's like is to do what you did and, go to all your freedom friends or go to all your people who've sold and said, tell me what your experience was. So I
Right.
would love for you to walk me through that experience and the highs and the lows of that experience as well. Once you've decided who the buyer is, what did that look like for you guys, Trey?
Well, the people that bought were friends, or still are friends, but the relationship can change a little bit, right? Because now you're talking dollars and cents, and so it gets a little more serious. Fortunately, they were very engaging in the process. If I had a question, they would answer. If they had a question, I would answer. So we had that common decency, if you will, to respond to each other. They went through several banks and trying to negotiate that when you have literally zero control over it. You're just waiting for the answer and they're sort of waiting for the answer. That was a little stressful because you just don't know. Matter of fact, Carey, I think our closing got pushed back 3 months,
It
or
did.
let's see, 2 months, I guess. Yeah. So, and that was fine. We didn't have an issue. But I'll tell you the hardest part that really is when you're trying to operate a company, you're trying to grow a company, and yet, unfortunately, to protect everybody's interest, you have to keep it secret. You have to keep it quiet. And, we decided to do that. So my team was unaware of what was going on. And I don't hide things. So that was very, very difficult for me to try
Mhm.
to own and operate and grow a company, and the team is not aware.
Yeah.
That is a challenge. At least it was for me. And so that was probably the biggest thing. Once we got confirmed on the number, obviously there's negotiation with that. But with your help in creating the sales info packet and all the valuations you had done for me, we had a pathway. We knew what the approximate value was going to be. So I had comfort in that. And those people, everything was fine regarding that. So that was probably it. Hopefully no one has this issue, but my CPA changed 3 times and my attorney changed twice in the whole process. So of course that wasn't fun, dealing with that whole mess. But in any way, it all worked out.
So since it was the trickiest part was keeping it secret, and I get that. Like, you rely on your team. If I felt like family to you, they definitely felt like family. And it's difficult because, change is hard for people. And the last thing you want to do is have somebody find out that change is upon them and it causes them to leave, which causes a ripple effect. And that was not the intent at all. So
Correct.
tell me how your team reacted. Like, what was that process look like, and how did they respond to you sharing with them that you've decided to sell the agency?
Uh, well, beforehand, the people that bought us, they had bought an agency or two in the past, and they kept 100% of the team that they purchased of the agency, the team of the agency that purchased. So I felt comfortable with that, and they told me that was their intent as well. So again, 2 thumbs up. That's a good thing. So we actually called everybody on a Sunday night, which I can tell you in 24 years, I never called a staff member on a Sunday night. So that was a little out of the ordinary because I had scheduled an 8 o'clock meeting with everybody in the office on Monday morning for some other subject matter to talk about whatever. So I had this conversation with each of them individually Sunday night. Michelle and I did, and those conversations lasted anywhere from 2 minutes to 5 minutes, and
Um,
they were all kosher, fine, no yelling or screaming or anything crazy. But the next morning, you could feel it in the room because there's just the unknown, right? Like, what's going to happen to me? What's happening? Am I getting cut? Are we losing benefits? Are we this? Are we that? All those unknowns. But fortunately, me and the buyers had discussed this multiple times. What I ended up doing is scheduling an hour meeting with my team. So my wife and I were there because she's part owner of the agency. And we met with the team for an hour. And then the buyers came in along with their head office manager. So the three of them were in there and they ran the meeting, if you will, for like the next hour. And then they stayed the entire day and met with them individually and answered questions. But they stood up, which I was very proud of. I thought this was fantastic. But they stood up and said, look, the only reason we're here is because you're here. We want you here. This place doesn't exist without you. And so I thought that was a
mhm.
very high comfort level for them. And again, everybody's still there. Everybody's still working. Everybody's doing all the things that we used to do, and they're just doing it with the new owner. So that was really, really good.
Good.
Yeah.
I love to hear that. That makes my heart happy that that transition was, you know, you had put a lot of thought into it and mapped it out and it went exactly how you wanted. And what did we say, 4 months now that it's been? It's still going strong. That's awesome. That's great to hear.
Yeah.
Well, I'd love to wrap up with, what advice do you have for someone who might be considering selling? And then I want to hear what you're doing now. What I need to hear about this challenge. What is this
I want to
challenge?
hear about the challenge too. So let's give our listeners some advice, but then tell us about this challenge. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, and I basically have already said it, but give yourself permission to go and do the research. Take your time, step away from the desk, step away from the office. Carey, I even asked you one time, I said, can I take a month off and just go like live in the woods or something? And you were like, well, no, you probably shouldn't do that, but maybe take a week or two, which I did. But I really do encourage anyone to do the best you can to remove yourself from the situation, try to get as clear of a mindset as you can, and then dig into what interests you in regards to podcasts, books, other people that have gone through this process. And, I've had several conversations with people that I know. They're like, why did you do it? How did you do it? We've had conversations, and I'm happy to share that. That's why, obviously I agreed to do this with you. And again, I go back and ask that question, what is enough? Because, at the end of the day, we have today.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, there's 3 chapters in your life. Chapter 1 is obviously birth through, say, college, right? Through higher education, if you choose to do that. Okay. Chapter 2 is, hey, Lindsay's in chapter 2, let's just say, right? You get out of school and you're like, all right, what's my path going to be? Married, family, dogs, whatever your wishes are in your working career. And then the 3rd chapter is, hey, I'm going to close the door on the working chapter. How much time do I have left? And what do I want to go do? Because if you spent good, valuable time during, if you will, chapter 2, and really hunkered down and really built what it is you're building, it's going to have a significant value. Take that value plus the other things you've done, and in my view, go enjoy life. Go have freedom. Go be a freedom friend. Go and do and travel and just be. That's really, honestly, there's no secret sauce. I just think it's the more prepared you are and the more knowledge you have going into the next chapter, I think the better chance you're going to have at survival of it. And you're not going to feel like you lost something. You're going to feel like you're gaining something.
Right. Love it.
And I think that's really big. Yeah.
All right. Tell us about this challenge. What are you doing? What are you training for?
Well, I'm training to hike Everest. So, it's not exactly hiking Everest, but it is called 29029 Everesting. So I'm going to be in Ketchum, Idaho, Sun Valley, Idaho in mid-September. And basically each hike up the mountain is 2,000 feet in elevation. It's 1.6 miles, and you do it 15 times in 36 hours. And when you're finished, it's the equivalent of reaching the height of Everest, which is, again, 26 miles. And so you hike all during the day, during the night, and you have to be done by, the 36-hour mark. So, yes,
Holy moly. You're in Wilmington, right? You're in Wilmington right now?
I'm in Concord right now, just outside of Charlotte. Mm-hmm.
Holy moly. So we live in Charleston, and a couple of years ago, my husband climbed Mount Kilimanjaro. It was his first ever climb.
How'd he do?
Thank good. He finished. It was 10 days. So like 7 days up, 2 days down, something like that. But I've never been so thankful to hear him come down the mountain and say, I donated all of my things. I'm never doing a hike like that again. Like, I was like, thank God, because I don't think I can do one of your hikes like this ever again. Like, that was terrifying. Holy moly, that's going to be awesome. So do you have to wear the mask? Do you have to wear like the oxygen mask when you get?
No, because it's not, the base elevation is about 5,500, maybe 6,000 at base elevation, and it goes up to about 8,000, 8,500 or so. The hike is about 2,000 of that. So, hopefully I won't have any issue with, with the elevation, but when I go skiing and stuff out west, I never have. So I should be okay. But yeah, I'm doing a lot of training for that. I hiked Beach Mountain 6 times this past weekend and all that. But that and just travel, we're blessed to be able to go to the mountains and the beach quite a bit. We're on the boat enjoying that. And just being free, honestly.
Yeah.
Just
Well,
being free.
I am happy to say you're definitely one of my freedom friends. So when I'm ready, I'll be calling you and saying,
yes.
The tables will turn and I'll be looking for advice from you, my friend. So
well,
awesome.
I'll take my boat down to Charleston and come down there and hang out and see you.
Heck
so
yeah,
we'll do that.
Absolutely.
We'll do that.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. I know that plenty of agents are thinking about this and, contemplating when is the right time for them and what is enough. So I appreciate you sharing your story and giving them something to think about.
Yeah. Well, thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure, and hopefully this will be a blessing to someone.
Yeah.
Thanks, Trey.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for tuning in to the Insurance Refocused podcast. If you enjoyed the episode, please be sure to hit subscribe and leave us a review so you'll never miss us. Want to learn more about how Agency Focus can help you grow your agency? Head to agency-focus.com or email Carey directly at carey@agency-focus.com. If you need to get in touch with me, feel free to shoot me an email at lindsay@agency-focus.com. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll see you next week.